In this video, I'm going to share with you my top 5 easiest plants to propagate. Propagating plants is where you create whole new plants from a cutting or a leaf of another plant. So it's creating a plant not from seeds, not from corms, not from bulbs, but from a cutting or a leaf of another plant. Not every plant works this way, and some are much easier than others to propagate. Different plants also have different methods of propagation, and it is my favorite way to get free plants, which if you look back at the content in my channel, a lot of it is focused on propagation of plants. So how to make new plants from existing plants that you already have. So since I love propagation so much, I have had a lot of failures and a lot of successes. So I've put together a list of plants which hopefully will help you start your propagation journey. As these are plants, I'm not going to say they're no fail, but they're a little bit easier to propagate than others. Coming in at number 5 on my list is Tradescantia. There are a lot of varieties of this plant. This is a Zebrina. It's real purple. It can go green as well. This is a Nanook. There are purple hearts. They're used as ground cover. They're used as hanging houseplants. And that's one thing I've found they're really easy to find for free at garden centers because they do break pretty easily. You'll see all these little pieces that as I was putting this video together, these just broke off, but they propagate so easily. All you need to do, stick the little broken piece into water, and within days, I mean, we're talking 2 days, it will start to root. Alternatively, you can just stick it straight into soil. It will also root. Now, to propagate this plant, you do need a node, which is another way of saying a stem. The roots will come out of the stem itself. It doesn't propagate from leaves alone, but as long as you've got a bit of stem, you don't need a ton. You could even have a really short stem like this, but as long as it's got a node, which is those little stripes where the leaves come out, you should be good to propagate. They're a pretty easy care houseplant. They don't require a ton of light. I actually find when you do give them haircuts, if you do cut a branch, it will grow another branch. So you'll get 2 pieces out of it. The Purple Hearts variety, that is used really commonly as ground cover here in Southern California. They also do really well from a haircut. You'll see this is new growth that came out of that cut stem. This one I had set in my house and I honestly forgot about it. And it's looking a little bit worse for wear, but if I tidy it up, cut it up, put it into either some soil or some fresh water, it will really start to look stunning. I mean, I've seen some hanging baskets with just really full versions of this plant. That is my number 5 easiest plant to propagate. Succulents are notoriously easy to propagate, and my number 4 plant is no exception. It is Sedum. Now, there's a lot of varieties of Sedum, from the more pointy leaf and orange copper tone Sedum to these more rounded ones. I believe this is another one. This is called pork and beans. It can turn really, really red to your really tiny Sedum like these that are used as ground cover. These got broken recently. I set them aside and they are just growing roots looking to regrow themselves. So one of the nice things about Sedum is not only do they grow really easily from a cutting, you'll see this one was a cutting and it re-rooted. I pulled it out for the sake of this video, but they're also really easy to propagate from leaf. All you need to do is take a nice healthy leaf like this, hold it firmly, twist, and it will pop off. You'll see there's a little dimple there. That's how you know you've done it well. Place it on soil, it will start growing a whole new plant. When you propagate with leaf by putting these directly onto the soil, they will propagate fairly quickly. They will start growing little baby plants within a couple of weeks. So like most succulents, they like warmth, they like bright light, sometimes indirect light, sometimes they can get sunburned with too much direct sunlight. You'll notice this one is very long with a lot of space between its leaves, which means it hasn't been getting enough sunlight. You want it to look a little bit more like these ones, a little bit tighter. When they're getting more light, there will be less space between the leaves and they'll be this more like tight, compact look. One good thing though, if I cut this strand much shorter, it will start growing new plants out of the existing stem as well. So they are so easy to propagate and the care is fairly straightforward. Of course, I have to add aroids onto this list. So number 3 is my heartleaf philodendron. And now this is a heartleaf philodendron. Sometimes people call them a mini monstera. There's also really similar philodendrons such as the Philodendron Brazil and the Philodendron micans, and they propagate very much the same way. So this is actually a cutting from a larger plant that I have that just was getting a little bit too wild and needed a haircut. I cut the strands, let them callus over for a day, and stuck them in water. It did take a little bit longer to grow roots compared to other water propagations that I had. I didn't add any rooting hormone, I just simply left it in the water, but they have grown some substantial roots. But one nice thing with this, similar to a lot of other propagating plants, is when you cut a piece such as the end here, it will grow a whole new strand. This is where it was cut, and it grew a whole new branch out the side. One of the things that's nice about this plant is it's really easy to know where to propagate it. This is another plant that does require nodes for propagating, meaning you need a stem and a node, which is the little growth point that leaves grow out of. And you can see it actually puts out little aerial roots. So when you have a cutting, as long as you get those aerial roots in water, that is where the roots will come out of. I have tried to propagate this using soil and using perlite. I haven't been as successful with soil. Nothing really happened. With the perlite, it was just much slower. It did root eventually, and I think that would work if you have a very, very small node to work with, if you want to like lay it flat. I have found, for me, water propagation is the easiest method. It doesn't require a ton of light, so I've had this up on the top of a kitchen shelf and it was pretty happy there. And it just continues to grow and grow and grow. And as long as you're giving it haircuts, you're gonna get a ton of free plants. Next on my list is a houseplant that will propagate from one single leaf, and that is Peperomia. This is another plant where there's tons of different varieties, and when they are nice and full, they look great. All you need is one single broken leaf. I've found many at Home Depot. You stick that leaf in water, damp sphagnum moss, perlite, it will start to root and grow new baby plants. In here is a Peperomia rosso and a Peperomia silver frost that is not that happy. I recently repotted it, and hopefully it will come back alive and get its beautiful silver coloring. There's of course Peperomia watermelon. This is Peperomia string of turtles. So this is a plant that is in the Peperomia family. This plant is also super easy and super satisfying to propagate. It does require a node, however, but it's so easy to get a node. These things break off very easily. It is fairly delicate. This plant for me started as a couple of small pieces similar to this. I laid them in sphagnum moss, they grew roots, and I replanted it, and now it is a very happy plant, but it does require a node. They won't grow from just a leaf the way other peperomias do. And finally, number 1 on my list of the easiest plants to propagate is another succulent. This is a Graptivaria Fred Ives. What I love about this plant is they can grow really, really large. They get this lovely pinkish green hue. If they have more direct sunlight, they'll go a little bit more orange. They are a succulent that doesn't really like a ton of stress. They don't want to be in really hot direct sunlight. They do like a little bit of indirect light, a little bit of dappled sunshine, but they are so easy to propagate. If you find yourself with some leaves or some trimmings, as long as they're healthy leaves, these sort of see-through flabby ones, they're not going to do anything. But the thicker, healthier, chunkier leaves, you simply place them on soil, they will grow whole new plants. And what I really love about these plants is even if you have a stem, so this plant in particular, this has been left in the shade, so it is getting a little bit lady. You'll even see how it's growing aerial roots because it's getting so long. If I was to trim the head off of this, that head, all I need to do, place it in soil, it'll continue growing. But the stem below it, whether it stays in the soil or if I even cut it into 2 pieces, I can place that stem into soil and it will grow a ton of new plants out of the stem. I have one flower pot in my backyard that I was using as a simple propagation box. I was putting some dead stems, what I call part of my dead garden, into the soil just to set it and forget it and see if they propagate. Now that pot is absolutely overflowing with giant Fred Ives. They can start very small and do get quite large, so do keep that in mind. If you put it in a smaller succulent arrangement, you might need to cut them out and replant them at a later time. And just as part of that, these are Graptosedums. These are ghosties, aka Graptosedum peregrines. They're almost like a cross between the Graptivaria, the Fred Ives that have this like lovely rosette, but a little bit thinner leaves, and the sedums, which have more rounded leaves, but chunkier leaves. These are sort of like a little bit in between. They are also so easy to propagate, whether you cut the head and you stick it in soil, or you have a leaf that you just simply twist off and place into soil. These propagate so easily, and you'll even get a lot of these from cut stems, and they'll grow a ton more. I have a whole video about different ways that I propagated these from leaves that I had found at a shopping center near my house. They are so simple to propagate. As a bonus, I have another one. This is a peanut cactus. My daughter was actually looking at this plant at a farmer's market. The owner of the plant stand noticed, gave her this one to propagate. We stuck it in this little pot with some good cactus mix, and very quickly it grew a ton of little babies. We did almost nothing to this plant. It doesn't need to be watered very often, maybe once a month, maybe less. So from this one strand of peanut cactus, it has made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 babies. This will become more of like a hanging cactus. As these grow, we can pull them off and make more plants from them so easily. And one of the nicest things about it, it's super soft, isn't it? I mean, it's a cactus you can touch. No hard spines. So that is it, my top 5 plus a bonus easiest plants to propagate. I hope this video has been helpful in your propagation journey. I am happy to answer any questions you may have. I am not a plant expert. I am just a plant fan who loves to propagate plants and get lots more free plants forever. Don't forget to check out my other social media channels and of course, subscribe.